Hey guys, Gregg from Start Haus. If you order a bike from us, first off, happy new bike day. Secondly, I'm going to show you a little bit about what you're going to commonly expect when the bike arrives at your house. Kind of what you're going to need to do to get the bike back together. We will have pre-assembled the bike, test ridden it, make sure everything works, and taken the least amount of parts off the bike to get it inside the box as possible, to save you as much work as possible when you receive the bike. A couple tools that you're likely to need are going to be not all of this, but some variants of these tools. Obviously a box cutter to cut the tape off the box. There's likely to be zip ties holding certain elements of the bike together inside, so sharp scissors, a pair of side cutters, and then some metric Allen keys, a 4, 5, and 6 millimeter at the very least. A lot of pedals use an 8 millimeter. Most bikes these days aren't coming with pedals, so we will have either pop some pedals in the box for you, or you're going to source pedals yourself. In any event, you'll know what you need for that. And then additionally, a lot of bike parts these days have a max torque spec on them, and you want to make sure that you don't exceed that torque spec. So we commonly use a torque wrench at the store just to make sure that we're not exceeding those torques that the manufacturers have put on there. So without further ado, we're just going to cut the box open and see what we got in here. Okay, so if there are pedals, this is pretty common what you can find. And then inside, the seat post wouldn't fit inside the bike even compressed with the dropper, so we've left the dropper hooked up with the cable and zip tied it to the tire, so the installation of this is going to be a little more straightforward. You're not going to have to hook a cable or anything like that up. So we just pull said bike out of box. Make sure that there's nothing hidden laying in the bottom of the box. Keep in mind these flaps, stuff sometimes hides under there, so it's good to look under both. I'm going to take my side cutters and get my pedals. Okay, let's get this box out of the way. And then, like I said, usually a bunch of zip ties holding some frame protection on, the front wheel on there, the seat post. So again, we're going to use the side cutters and get rid of this stuff. Okay, so we'll have to go over a dropper install because our dropper popped off. Usually not too difficult. Be careful if you're cutting any tape on here that you don't scratch the frame. Okay, something to be really careful of. A lot of times there's a pressed in end cap in these hubs, and there's always going to be some sort of axle protector. Sometimes when you take this axle protector off, these end caps will get stuck on here. Don't throw the end caps away. Okay, so if you need to hook your dropper back up, 95% of droppers attach the same way inside a bike. You've got a lead end of the cable on this side. You're just going to make sure that as much of the cable's pulled out as possible. And then there'll be an actuator in the post right here, and this is where the lead end of the cable goes. So you just place that. In there, hook your ferrule into the bottom of the post, and then grab the lever and help pull the cable through. So you're pulling the cable through as the post goes into the bike. We're just going to guess at the height right now. We're going to cinch the seat up. We're going to get the post height dialed after we get the pedals on there for our rider height. Okay, almost universally the handlebars are going to come off the bike. We will try as much as possible to leave the handlebar stem on so you don't have to mess with the headset adjustment. The only thing you should have to use, take off are these stem faceplate bolts right here. The handlebars are almost always going to have some sort of indicator of where the center of the bar is. You're just going to eyeball that, get it centered up inside the stem. Okay, but the only thing that's important here is in tightening these bolts down, you just want even spacing up here between the faceplate and the main body of the stem, and you want that same spacing underneath. I typically just feel in there with my fingers on the underside to make sure there's even spacing. You could peek in there as well. I'm just going to snug these up, put my brake levers about where I think they should be. Make sure I'm centered here. Okay. So my front axle, there's going to be a bit of variance in the way the front axles get attached to the bike. You're going to want to probably consult your manual to see how this stuff works. Dropper lever here. Okay, if your front brake caliper gets shipped off of the fork, it's going to come with a pad spacer in it. These get installed so the brake pads don't get pushed together in shipping. It'll make installing the caliper a lot easier on the bike. So all you're going to do is pull some rubber bands or zip ties off there. So we're going to pull the pad spacer out. The hoses get fished inside the fork leg. And we're going to just get the bolts started, but we're not going to snug them up. We're going to just get them close so the caliper can still float. Once we're close, we just hold on the front brake. We snug the bottom. We snug the top. Spin the wheel, and if we hear no rubbing, we're centered, which we are, and then we'll snug these up as well. Again, these caliper bolts do have a max torque to pay attention to, and universally there's going to be some sort of hose clamp guide on here. This is very important to note because this keeps the brake hose from getting caught up in your front wheel. And these are fairly self-explanatory, but again, your manual will kind of go over how this goes. Okay. The tires will usually be low in air. We deflate in case the bike hits an airplane or something. They get pretty high. We don't want the tires to get overinflated in the air. So at this point, you're going to need to install some pedals. Be careful, there's a right and a left pedal. The pedals should be marked. The left-hand pedals are left-hand thread, so the righty-tighty goes out the door in this one. We're going to adjust the saddle height before we go out on our first ride, but that's pretty much it. Hey guys, one thing of note here, there's a lot of help online about how to do this otherwise from what we're telling you. One thing I will say, if you're not 100% sure of how to do this yourself, I encourage you to work with your local bike shop to get yourself put together. Make sure the bike's safe. Make sure the bike is set up for you. You might need help with suspension settings, things like that. We've got videos on that stuff as well, but I can't emphasize enough to develop a relationship with your local bike shop for some help to make sure this bike gets together properly for you and get yourself set up.